Thanks for taking time to listen to this episode of the Real ResQ podcast. Take a minute to go to therealresq.com to check out these and other great deals from our sponsors here at the Real ResQ. This episode of the Real ResQ podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. And RescueSwimmerShop.com, official high-quality apparel featuring the silhouette. Breeze Eastern. They dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. SR3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help your helicopter training. They train daytime, nighttime, aerial firefighting, hoist, long line, fast rope, rappel, and more. They can assist your program with standardization and safety checks or just an FAA annual refresher. With the certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crew, they are ready to help your agency keep up to date with current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. Plus, right now, SR3 is offering 10% off anything in their web store with the promo code, all capital letters, Real ResQ, REALRESQ. Plus, they are offering 10% from their partners Petzl and their equipment. All you got to do is send an email to info@sr3rescueconcepts.com. Mention this podcast, the Real ResQ podcast, and they'll take care of the rest. 15 years ago, photographer and Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 526, Chris Razar, created an iconic photograph. This photograph depicted the silhouette of a helicopter rescue swimmer reaching down for an outstretched hand in need against the American flag backdrop. The image went viral and became a symbol worldwide for the rescue community and the people they help. Its wild popularity inspired Chris to launch RescueSwimmerShop.com, a web store offering official high-quality apparel featuring his evocative image, the silhouette. T-shirts, hats, patches, and stickers featuring the silhouette are available at RescueSwimmerShop.com, including the flagship design, So Others May Live. Follow Chris and his story on Instagram with the handle @RescueSwimmerShop. And if you are a rescue swimmer, support rescue swimmers, or just tell people you are one at the bar, this gear is definitely for you. When you get to the website, RescueSwimmerShop.com, enter the promo code, all lowercase, one word, RESCUE, RESCUE, for 10% off your order. Our next guest is coming to us all the way from Australia. And one of the great parts about this conversation that I had with him is one of the stories that he actually talks about, I use in training all the time. And it was great to hear the backside of the story as far as what happened, recovery time, and what happened with the whole incident in itself. So great lessons learned, and we get to talk about it here. So without further ado, please welcome my friend, Sam Fielder. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ podcast. I've got another guy down from the down under with me, Mr. Sam Fielder, Aircrewman, a helicopter rescue guy down there. You have a whole bunch of roles. So, Sam, what's happening?
How are you, mate? Good to be here.
Dude, good having you. Thank you so much for coming on. Man, I love the stories that you guys have down there. So I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Sure, we can bring out a couple of good ones for you.
One or two. Yeah. Because you mentioned a couple of things already, and I'm like, ooh. So for everybody else out there, if you don't mind, just kind of give yourself a little introduction, a little bit of background about you and how you got into search and rescue.
So I'm Sam. I'm from Australia, originally from Adelaide, which is central South Australia as far as the map goes. Grew up around the water, swimming. My family's got a fairly strong surf lifesaving background. Well, with my kids now, it's 4 generations deep. Playing nice. Water polo and just always around the water. And had been around surf lifesaving for a bit, managed to get myself onto the down here in Adelaide. We had there's a surf rescue helicopter that sort of does shark patrol type work.
Wait, I'm sorry, shark patrol?
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
You're not the bait on the hook, right? I get it.
Not deliberately.
Oh, okay, just checking.
But no, so they'll literally use the helicopter to basically muster the sharks out to see if one's sighted along a swimming beach. So you come down low, push them out, and then hopefully that's them gone for the day. And
wow.
Yeah. So I'd gotten onto that and sort of was giving up weekend time and stuff for that sort of thing. And then one day I just went and knocked on the door of the government contracted rescue helicopter and sort of, hey, g'day, I'm Sam. How do I get paid to do this rather than not paid to do it over the road? And they sort of said, they sort of chuckled at me and said, look, you won't, there's no entry-level jobs going here, but give us your name and your number and we'll get our chief crewman to get in touch. And eventually had a chat to him and we sort of had a bit of a yarn and he sort of said, yeah, look, keep in touch. We might have some stuff going in far north Queensland. It'll be entry-level rescue swimmer type work, but it's still all a bit up in the air at the moment, but stay in touch. And we did. And one day he rang me out of the blue and just sort of said, look, the new contract signed and sealed. The ad for the pilots runs next week. The ad for the crewmen and rescue swimmers runs in a fortnight. Make sure you're ready. And just sort of went through the process from there, the recruitment process, and was lucky enough to get one of the 2 spots that was on offer, and away it went from there.
Wow. All right. Nice. Now, like I talked to Ben a little bit and a couple other guys, but give me a little rundown, or everybody else a little rundown, as far as like what you guys go through to be a rescue swimmer, crewman, because you're also a hoist operator, crewman, paramedic off the top of my head?
No, not a paramedic, but a hoist operator. Have been rescue swimmers. So it sort of depends where you are in Australia. So there's certain parts of Australia that the helicopter provider will also, they'll provide a rescue swimmer and a hoist operator. In some parts of the country, it might be one of the state paramedics or the government paramedics that are then on the aircraft that perform the rescue swimmer role. And there's a couple of spots where those lines are blurred a little bit. So where I was working to start with, our private company provided the rescue swimmers. So we were quite fortunate really, because we were the start of a brand new contract that hadn't been in that location.
Cool.
Part of the contract had a dedicated training block at the start, which isn't super common in the commercial world. So we were fortunate that we had 2 big blocks of time split up by Christmas and New Year break with the aircraft that was getting ready to go onto the contract. So we weren't competing for in between operational jobs that our training was getting delayed and the like, and we were just able to be sort of, for the most part, isolated by ourselves and just focus on basically learning the gear, learning the drills, and getting flogged in the pool. Really, was sort of the nuts and bolts of it. Really,
I'm sorry. Getting flogged in the pool is like I've never heard it said like that. That is hilarious and so accurate. Oh my gosh, you've just made my day. Thank you.
I'm glad.
Right on. Oh, I like that. All right. So now, once you guys get through your stuff and you're now standing duty, what was your very first case?
Um, so the contract we were on was not just search and rescue, but aeromedical as well. So we had a lot of false starts as far as my first winch job. We'd sort of get tasked on a search, get out there, and a police launch that'd be on the search as well. It'd nip in just as everyone would spot him, and we're like, and you'd come home ripped off that the guy was recovered by the boat rather than getting to do the first winch.
Darn it.
Yeah, that happened quite a bit, and unfortunately, and then the first one, it was sort of nothing super super crazy. A guy he'd had motor trouble. He'd been adrift. I think he'd been adrift for sort of overnight sort of thing. He was traveling from point A to point B. Point A thought he'd already gotten there. Point B assumed he hadn't left yet. And then when they'd spoken to each other, like, oh, no, hang on, he's left. Oh, and he's not here. It sort of raised the alarm. And the seas were pretty calm. It was just a good, strong breeze, and he drifted a fair way off track. And, it was pretty simple and straightforward, really. Winch found the vessel, winched down. He was sort of 6 or so metre runabout fishing vessel, and, strop recovery up to the aircraft and took him home, which was easy. Nothing super fantastic to write home about, but at the same time, it was good to have something simple and straightforward to get under the belt.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And to get started with something like that is great, because it's everything you've been training. So, you know, like, I mean, we all remember our first case, or most of us remember our first case, and, you know, like, oh, this is training. Yeah, this is just like training, only it's real life. But your anxiety's a little higher, your adrenaline's kicking. You're like, yeah, let's do this.
Yes. Yeah. It was good. It was good in that way, you know, brand new, pretty fresh and green, to not have to try and reinvent the wheel and use much initiative, and just go, okay, cool. This is just as procedural as we've learnt it. Don't have to depart too much left or right to make it work. And worked out pretty well.
Nice. I was waiting for you to tell me that, you know, you were lowering down a mechanic and some parts and tools with a couple liters of fuel, and say, all right, get that boat going. Let's go.
Nah, I am not the guy you want fixing your outboard. Not at all. Not mechanical.
Oh, that's funny. Nice. Well, that's a good way to start the career. So now you have a couple memorable things that have happened throughout. How long have you been doing this?
That would have been December 2007. It would have been that we kicked off. So that's coming up 14 years roughly. Been a little while now, and seen a few funny things, and, you know, as we all have, as we were talking about before, you sort of see the odd thing that you sort of get to, and you go, oh, how's this come about? But there's
totally.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all ears, my friend. Go ahead.
Oh, what do you got? You know, I've certainly done, you know, I'm not someone who, I haven't done any super massive, enormous seas rescues or anything like that. And, you know, in the scheme of things of rescue swimmers around the world, I doubt that many of my jobs are anywhere close to being record breaking or, you know, that sort of amazing thing. I think probably from my side of my career, the two big standouts are probably the two accidents that I've been in, unfortunately, and put a bit of a negative spin on it. But yeah, you know, they're the two standouts. And
so 2 accidents.
Yeah, 2. Yep.
You might have to clarify.
One of the guys I started with sort of used to say, "Oh, you're as safe as houses. No one's ever crashed 3 times." And I'd turn around and say, "Yeah, but and only those of us that have crashed twice can do it." So,
so when you're saying accidents, you're talking. Let's see, you were in the air and you mandatory on the ground.
Yeah. That's a pretty good way to put it. So,
so takeoffs are optional. Landing mandatory.
Yeah. Well, technically, on the first one, the aircraft still made a deliberate landing. So the first one was probably what was that? That was back in November 2009. So 2 just very different different accidents. So the first one was basically the cable got sheared.
All right, hold on. All right, back up. Are you on a case or are you on training?
Task, yeah, on a live task.
Okay. The alarm goes off. What do you got?
Okay, so the task was it was the recovery of a crewman on a container ship. He'd had a heart attack.
Okay.
We got a phone call saying, look, we need you from the coordination center, the national coordination center. Look, we need you to recover this unwell crewman. But at that stage, the vessel was a long way out of our range. So it was a pre-booked sort of task. They said, look, you're, I think they sort of rang us with the initial phone call at some point before lunchtime, probably 11 o'clock in the morning. And I don't think we sort of planned to be overhead until maybe around the 4 o'clock in the afternoon mark. So we had, we had a bunch of notice because it was a long way out, which I guess, you know, for your listeners not in Australia, there's a fair bit of remote coastline away from population centres in Australia. So, you know, there's plenty of times where that happens at bases around the country where they'll ring you up and say, oh yeah, look, there's a vessel coming along, but it's not going to get to you or to somewhere that you can do something about it, and for a few hours time, just because of the distances. So we planned the task. The meet point was going to be about 70 miles, 130 kilometers out to sea from where our base was. Fuel was going to be not critical, but we weren't going to have stacks of time.
20 minutes overhead. On scene is usually when this, you know, and that's not getting into your reserves, but that's 20 minutes of work is kind of the average with all of us that I've been around of on scene time.
Yeah, and that was sort of what we'd worked on, is that we knew we were definitely going to have 20 minutes, and that was sort of at the conservative burn rate for fuel. So we, you know, that was probably going to blow out a little bit, but it also wasn't going to be a lot. So we planned, we got the paramedic sorted, ready to go. We punched out to meet this vessel, got out there, got overhead the vessel. They'd positioned a crew member to right at the nose of this container ship. It was the only clear area on the deck. In the past, we had winched off of bridge wings, but given our time on head and it was a 300-meter vessel, getting the patient 300 meters back up the boat and up 6 or 7 stories of stairs up to the bridge wing wasn't going to be an option. So we're kind of committed to this open clear area at the nose. The plan had been to winch myself and the paramedic out with a stretcher down onto the vessel, get the patient packaged up. The paramedic would have attended with the stretcher as we recovered the stretcher. Then I was going to bring up the remainder of the gear as the last man off the boat. And if time had run out, it already briefed that I was going to be staying on board until it got closer to port, and I might have gotten off on a marine pilot transfer vessel or the like as it got closer. So we started the winch out, started to deploy onto the ship, and unfortunately the pilot lost hover references. So he started a drift. The drift wasn't arrested quickly enough, I guess you'd say, and myself and the paramedic were on the cable, and the cable got dragged across the king post at the front of the vessel. So, you know, a crow's nest looking thing at the front of the ship.
Yep.
And basically the cable dragging across along the ship, along the post, it caught a bracket and just sheared straight through the cable.
Oh, God.
So, so that myself and the paramedic have fallen roughly 15 meters, 50 feet or so.
50 feet?
Roughly, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Straight down onto the deck.
Now, real quick, because I'm visualizing right now a container ship, and you're at the very bow of the ship. And I know what you're talking about with that crow's nest right there. There's not a clear area like underneath. There's anchors and there's chains and there's tie down spots, and
so that moved So I hit a post on the way down. They had cleared some of that out of the way. I think the area that we sort of had to work with was about 4x4 off the top of my head, 4 meters by 4 meters, or what's that, 12?
Yeah,
12 foot
close
by 12
enough.
foot or so.
Yeah. Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah. That's what you get when you grow up with a bell.
Yeah.
I live in a metric company, but fly in an Imperial helicopter.
Yeah, you know what? Oh, good. It's easy to translate like across the world. Everybody's like, oh.
Yeah. So the cable sheared. We fell to the deck, and all of a sudden, myself and the paramedic became far more serious than the patient that we'd gone to retrieve. The aircraft remained overhead, recovered what was left of the cable, spoke with the vessel, ensured that they got their medical staff to start treating us, and then they started heading for home, not only because of fuel, but because there wasn't anything they could be doing from there.
Right.
On return back to the aircraft, back to base, the engineers, when they were looking over the aircraft, they found out, and the aircraft was actually lucky to make it back, because although it had sheared where we were, and it was only sort of 10 or 20 centimeters above the hook where it had sheared, the cable had actually recoiled into the disc. So,
oh my God.
So the end of the cable that the hoist operator stowed wasn't actually the section of the cable that had come away from the hook, and that there's a length somewhere at the bottom of the ocean that it had put creases along the main rotor and put a puncture hole in the tail rotor.
Holy smoke.
So, I mean, fortunately it was a bell, and the Hueys got plenty of holes in them early on in their careers, and so they made it back. They did. Yeah. They had no idea until it was on the ground. They didn't feel anything, so they were really lucky. They then they tasked there was a second aircraft on the base. They tasked that aircraft to go and recover the paramedic, because he was the most serious, and got him off and away to hospital. And then they inserted a paramedic to treat me on the vessel until we got closer, and I was recovered off with the paramedic as it went past, when a marine pilot transfer vessel was close enough to get us off of the boat.
Holy smoke, man.
Yeah, it wasn't sort of how we were all pretty excited. Oh, cool, we get to go and do a ship winch today. And not how, by the end of the day, it wasn't sort of as excited and pumped as we thought we'd be.
You think? Yeah. A 50-foot fall might do that to you, man.
Yeah. It it was pretty significant. I took a fair bit of damage myself. They got me back to the local hospital by boat. The area that we're in is a series of islands, so there was only a small hospital there. They sort of checked me out and then got me flown off the island to a larger hospital. I was there for probably 3 or 4 days maybe, and then I got moved to a major capital city hospital to get the post-accident operations and stuff done.
So I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper as far as injuries to yourself. Like what? Because I mean, you're talking surgery, so they're fixing stuff, putting plates in or rods or whatnot. What were the
So on my fall, I fell down. As I was falling, I clipped a post which spun me onto my side. So all of my damage was right side. I was knocked out, but at least the doctors tell me I don't have anything going on in my head. Friends may tell me otherwise, but yeah. So
there's some of that dark humor coming out.
Yeah. So there was a minor concussion, but nothing major there. I cracked the helmet rather than my head, so it did its job. I had multiple fractures through my shoulder and collarbone, scapula, a couple of fractured ribs, shattered my elbow with some nerve damage there, and there was a lot of bruising through the hip. No one was ever able to identify a fracture, but it took a long time for the hip to sort itself out. And I think if there was anything there, it was in place and mended itself. But yeah, so most of the damage is contained to my right arm and shoulder, ongoing. Bit of nerve damage through the ulnar as well.
Holy smoke, man! Wow. Well, I'm glad that you got to the good help you needed. That's not how the day was expected to go. Holy cow.
Yeah. And I was lucky, I got some really good treatment from some really good people. I was put onto a fantastic surgeon in Brisbane where I had my surgery. A couple of complications because Brisbane wasn't where I was living, so I then got handballed onto another surgeon in my hometown. But the recovery went well. Fantastic physio. I actually didn't remember it. I was probably pressing the morphine button a bit too often. But the surgeon that had done the work had told me apparently that no, there's no way you're going back to work. This isn't, this is a showstopper. I've put it all back together, but no, it's not going to work. And yeah, so I didn't actually know that had been said, even though it was only he and I in the room and there was no one else he was talking to. So yeah, I came back home, turned up to a local physio and said, look, this is what's going on. This is what I need to be able to do. And he went, oh, okay, we'll get to work. And, I just treated the rehab like work because I didn't have anything else to do. And eventually I had a couple of issues with the surgeon here at home. I wasn't his patient. He'd just been referred. So, he wasn't as invested as someone that would have, as the guy that had repaired me would have been.
Understood.
So I eventually managed to convince the work cover or workers insurance agency to send me back to the surgeon for some follow-ups interstate. And I sort of turned up and I said, oh yeah, look, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing so far. What are you sort of thinking for a return to work date? And he's looked at me, he's gone, do you not remember our discussions? What discussion? He said, oh, I told you this isn't happening. And I've sort of turned white. And he's gone, but based on what you've done, I can't see how you're not going back to work. And I thought, oh, cool. There's a bit of ignorance is bliss. And I just spent the last sort of 4 or 5 months just thinking, oh yeah, I'm going back to work. And that's just what's happening. And yeah, he wasn't ever expecting to see me again because he didn't think it was, going to happen. So yeah, a lot of hard yards, just slow incremental gains. I've spent a lot of time on the Xbox, a lot of time.
So you're a professional at Halo. People are getting paid for that, right?
Yeah.
You should have just stuck with that.
Nowhere near as good as I should be for the amount of time I've spent playing it. But yeah, and I thought it worked out quite well. I said to the workers insurance, I said, look, I'm going to have to do a fitness test when I get back. The more I sit around doing nothing is, the longer I'm going to be sitting on your insurance claim. Can you get me an exercise bike? I said, oh yeah, I guess that's something we could look at. And I convinced him to get one of those, those sitting back ones, the lay back ones.
Yeah.
So my wife would go off to work and I'd just basically get onto my lay back exercise bike and I'd just sit there playing Call of Duty, pedaling away like all day, just pedaling.
You're
pedaling
charging
along.
the TV.
Yeah, almost.
Oh,
almost.
The TV's going up. Pedal faster. Faster.
Yeah. It was that sort of thing. And then, my wife started pointing out that if I was trying to take a sniper shot, I wasn't realizing that my legs had come to almost a halt and then they'd start up again as I fired the shot. But yeah, so, I spent a lot of hours just sort of ticking over because I didn't have anything else to do. I couldn't run. Yeah. The shoulder was still too unstable. I couldn't run, couldn't swim. So it was just rehab exercises and pedaling away on this exercise bike to get me back.
Sam, holy cow. All right. So first of all, I'm going to mention this right now. That doctor did not realize he was dealing with a rescue swimmer. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. So Doc, next time ask what we do because that's the answer you're going to get. Boom.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it was funny, like as I was getting assessed to go back, like there were a couple of the insurance doctors that are like, oh, is this hurting? And they actually called me out and said, no, you're bluffing on all of this pain because you wouldn't be going back to work if you were dealing with this pain. I was like, yeah, but like I just could not get through to them, the passion about what it is we do. So
Right.
I'm like, no, yeah, there's a bit of discomfort there at the moment, but it's not discomfort enough to not do this really cool thing that we do. And it just didn't fit their models. And they're like, they were, for a little while, they were a bit hesitant about, oh, well, we shouldn't be clearing you for work if you're saying you've got this sort of pain. But yeah, anyway, we got around it and got back there and got through the training and all the return to work stuff, and away we moved.
And you went back to flying and hoisting and swimming and
yeah. So I actually did my
just badass.
I actually did my hoist operators training as part of the light duties for like while I was progressing back to work. So once they'd sort of said, yeah, look, you can be starting to do bits and pieces, we sort of went, oh, okay, cool. Work said, look, here's an opportunity. Let's, you can start operating the hoist, shot bag only, weight bag, not moving people around at that point.
What shoulder was damaged, right or left? Sorry.
Right.
Your right shoulder. So that is all your movement on the cable too, because your hand's on the cable. So your pendant is in your left hand.
Yep.
You're manipulating the cable. So you're having to really work that shoulder.
Yeah. Yep.
Dang. Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, well, that's training in itself. Like,
yeah, in hindsight, it was really good because it got me back flying without doing the high intensity stuff that the swimming role took. So it was just a good progression as far as the rehab went to, not have been away from the aircraft for quite as long as it could have been had I not done that before being fit and ready to jump back on the cable.
Yeah. Wow. Can I come back to the actual accident? Can we debrief that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So first question. I already have the answer to this, but I'd like to make this a discussion point because people don't quite understand exactly what no reference refers to.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So your pilot is in a hover and has a reference point that he's looking at the very tip of the bow of the ship. And the rest after that is nothing but water. Right?
Yes.
So at what point, what happened where he lost reference? Because you said he started moving backwards, and so what happened? Do we know?
I don't. So I'm missing a fair bit of memory over that period. It was sort of, I say a fair bit. There's probably 3 hours pre-accident that I'm missing, and most of the maybe 6 or so hours of fuzzy memories that I think is mostly from the ketamine that the paramedics gave me afterwards. But yeah, so basically because of the small, my understanding of it is he only had a small point that he was fixating on, and to make sure he was moving at this, because obviously the vessel was underway. So to make sure he's moving at the same rate as the vessel, as he's moved overhead the winch point, that's taken the nose or the bow of the ship underneath his instruments.
Yes.
And he was relying completely on the conning and the calls of the crewman or the hoist operator in the back. It's at that point where he's thought he's moving forward, he's not, because he's looking at the waves on the water, and as you know, when you've only got waves, it's tricky to pick whether you're moving forward or whether the waves are moving past you.
Right.
So just that optical illusion has created a bit of the drift backwards. The ATSB, or your equivalent of the NTSB report, sort of indicates that the hoist operator called that there was a drift. He's put some forward input in to try and arrest that. It didn't change much. He's called again, but by the time the second call went in and the forward input went in, we'd already connected with that post. Wow. And talking about the size of the area that we were trying to winch to, there's fractions of seconds in that. He goes too far forward and they're putting us over the front of the boat and into the water. He comes too far back, we're off the side of the boat again. So it was a pretty narrow spot that he was working for. So there wasn't a lot of room for error there.
All right. So next question is going to be based on what was in front of you, like you mentioned water, if he had done a more of a flyaway or just continued forward faster than the ship, would you guys have been clear of everything, like clear of the deck? There was nothing in front of you. Is that accurate?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So had we rolled forward, not to armchair pilot and
nope.
So yeah, the forward area was clear.
Okay.
But bearing in mind, that would have put us. We would have been 80, no more, probably 100, 120, 140 feet up out over the water.
Yeah.
At speed at that point, had they taken that flyaway option, so that wouldn't have been a risk-free environment either.
No, I totally agree. So here's why I'm asking some of these questions and this is for everybody out there that's listening, everybody that does this. Pilot reference is the most important part of the hoist evolution. They have to have something to look at. And I am not a pilot, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am. However, I've been in enough aircrafts that when pilots lose reference, they, what we call in the back, dance all over the sky. And you're moving forward, backwards, left, right, trying to gain some sort of hold in a position. And it doesn't work. One of the things that I train personally with all the pilots that I work with is I ask them, don't allow me as a hoist operator to con you or give you directions outside of your reference. If you get to a point, you're like, it's just on the edge, tell me no, and I can adapt and overcome. The next one would be if you lose reference, especially with something like that, call it, I've lost my reference, and then have a plan to get away from it. So in your case, maybe forward and left, and then slow down so the ship can catch up. And then you come back over to the ship at another point. Hoist operator brings you back up. And I'm only bringing this up because there are other options to try to help those to not repeat this again. And I am happy to discuss with anyone about different options to have. Like, one more would be for us is if we go to a platform, and on the platform you have, like, we always insert to a close corner, like, and then the pilot has the opposite side corner. If he loses reference, his job is to come back and left until he has some sort of reference and then reevaluate. Again, depending on how much cable is out, depending on where the rescueman or the victim's at, it will depend on the moves and whether you're going to shear the cable or keep hoisting. There's a lot of dynamics and different changes and stuff, but these are big discussion points with the pilot lost reference emergency. It is an emergency procedure. I will argue that point with anybody that says otherwise. So I'm done with my soapbox. Sam, tag.
No, that's all right. And and so there are a couple of procedure changes that came in after that. We've now got the requirement to make sure we do an overhead recce or pull up into a dummy approach. Yep. Okay. This is where we're going to winch from. Everyone happy with how this all looks? Yep. Cool. Okay. We'll now go around, come back in, and then that'll go, okay, no, this isn't what we thought. All right, back up, move away. Let's look at plan B. Let's look at our other options. So, it certainly drove a lot of change across the organization.
I personally really enjoy what you guys called it, a practice run?
Dummy overhead.
Oh, dummy. Okay, so I've called it a rehearsal, or it is your practice run. It's getting over the top of your target. It's getting to where you're going to hoist and set up, and then either coming back to a rest position or an off center position or a pattern around. I love that idea. I use it quite often. So
yeah, it's good.
Solid, man. I'm sorry that happened to you. I actually do know this story. I talk a lot about this story just because especially with pilot reference stuff. I did not realize it was you when we started the interview.
It's not something, well, it happened, but I'm also not, I'm not spruiking it everywhere that, hey, everyone, guess what, it's just, everyone has bad days at work. There's plenty of far more drastic accidents in workshops and the like. So
Well, I won't tell anybody in the world that Sam Fielder got sheared on a cable and hit the deck from 50 feet.
Okay.
Okay. Right. I won't
tell
keep
anyone. It between you and me.
Yeah, right. No problem. See, your secret is safe from me. All right.
All right.
Well, you know what? I love the fact that you guys made changes. I hope it's trained, and I hope for everybody out there that's listening that you guys are training a similar scenario. Loss of reference is a big, big deal. All right. So I can't emphasize it enough. We train it, we practice it, and know what to do. And again, don't let the hoist don't let me as a hoist operator con you outside of your reference. Don't allow that to happen. Say stop and reevaluate. Come down in altitude. Move to a different location. Reset. Call in a board or like a no-go and do a go-around. Whatever you got to do to avoid that. I am all about it because it's not fun. I had another buddy that the lost reference, something similar. The aircraft did not fall out of the sky. Oh, it almost did, but they overtorqued the snot out of the aircraft, and pilot retired. Co-pilot said, "No, I'm done. I don't want to fly anymore." And the rescue swimmer resigned, and all from that in particular flight. So I understand, not a fun scenario. So good. No. Now, mad props to you for getting back in the air. That is awesome. Good for you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I'm
not sure what else I would have gone and done, really. And like I said, I didn't know the doctor had said it, but it just was, that was just what was happening. There wasn't much thought went into it. It was just, oh, okay, let's keep on keeping on. So, yeah.
Man,
there was no grand plan.
Thank you for sharing this. I got to tell you, I really appreciate this one. One, because I know the story, so to hear the guy that it had happened to, it actually means a lot to me. Because now I'm going to take this and be like, I know the dude. I know the guy. I got a guy. I know a guy. I got a guy.
Fair enough.
But no, thank you. Thank you for sharing this one. It's important.
No. Yeah, and about. I'm the same. If there's people anywhere that sharing that helps with, then it's no point keeping my little piece of it bundled up in my head. If someone's going to learn from it, or it's going to give someone an idea of how to do something differently or how not to do something, then it's worth sharing, because it's too easy for what we do for a small problem to become a big problem. So if sharing it helps, then I'm more than happy to.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Now this is the first one, so it's not like your luck changed very much. Jeez, come on, Sam.
Yeah.
All right, wait a minute. Before we get into the second one, though, was there anything like in between that was really cool?
Oh, there's always, there's plenty of jobs that you sort of remember and bits and pieces. I personally, I like to, I try not to dwell on the tragic ones, because as you've seen, and as some of your other podcast guests have sort of talked about, there's plenty of stuff we see that's you don't want to have to remember. It's in there. You hope that it stays down and away and not at the forefront of your mind. But there's stuff we see that's pretty tragic, and there's obviously that sort of thing can be a bit of a constant with our side of things. But then because of that, I sort of like to remember the funny ones and the oddities and those sort of ones that sort of make you chuckle and turn back up again the next day. There was one that I copped a bit of grief over for a little while, that a guy had set off his beacon, and we went out there and tracked to it and found him, and he'd been having some medical episodes. He'd sort of be driving his boat and then all of a sudden lose consciousness and then wake up, but he hadn't necessarily, the boat had kept going, so he wasn't quite sure where he was, so he'd set off his beacon, and but while he was waiting, he decided to continue fishing, which sure, why not? That's what he was there for to start with. So mate, there's no point sitting there doing nothing. And
I just don't know where I'm at in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a small dinghy, and we went to get put in the. I said to the hoist operator, I said, "Oh, look, just put me in at the back, put me in the water. I'll just swim up to the side." Didn't look like he had an anchor out, and we said, "Oh, look, the rotor wash is just going to blow this thing all around. Put me in. I'll swim across to him. I'll stay on the hook, but I'll swim across to him and get him into the water and lift him out of there." And as I was getting winched down, I was probably 5 or 6 feet off the water. I picked up a line that was coming off the I could see in the water off the vessel. I sort of thought, oh, hang on, he's got an anchor, and then I realised it was a set of burley pots, and so I've basically flipped myself upside down and curled into a ball and started, the area that we were is known for some pretty big sharks and tiger sharks and the like. And I'm like, no, I'm not getting in the back of this boat that's just been bobbing around with a big chunks of meat hanging off the side of it. I was like, no, you winch me back up, mate. I'm not getting in that water. Like, oh, you're meant to be a tough rescue swimmer. I'm like, yeah, except where there's shark fishing going on. So so then he put me into the boat and recovered him from there. So, yeah. I had my limit. I'd found where my line was.
Oh, that's good. We do know where we sit in the food chain, and as soon as you jump in the ocean, you're like, oh yeah, this is where I am.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's stuff like that sort of, you chuckle about, you laugh about, and it's that sort of thing that keeps you coming back.
Oh yeah. Like I told you, I can't get enough of it. I do this until I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Keep it going, my friend.
All right. Look, and in between, that was 2009. The second accident was 2013. There was a bunch of good jobs there. I was lucky. The contract we were on, we had a small group. We all sort of lived together as well. And we all knew what we were thinking. We were reading each other's minds. It just, the crew coordination and everything was really good. We had a fantastic group of really experienced pilots. There was plenty of non-event jobs, but then, fishing vessels, taking on water, sinking, winching multiple people out. Ill people, tourists, all sorts. And, like I said, also, I think every rescue swimmer's done it somewhere. You go on a search, and I think people sort of think, oh yeah, you go on a search and you eventually find something, but
no,
there's stacks of jobs where you see, yep, we know there's someone missing. We know this is where they were. We've combed every inch of this ocean and they're not here anymore. And,
right.
There's plenty of those sort of ones that you come home with a bit of an empty feeling in your stomach. You're like,
yep,
we're out there to find, and, they may not have been there to be found, but, it's not all sort of happy endings, and, there's that. And then, you throw in a funny one and you sort of go, oh yeah, here we are again. This is why we do it, and have a chuckle, and, and it just, the cycle continues.
Do you guys do a lot of cruise ship stuff?
At previous bases I've worked at, yes. Where I'm currently working, not so much. Maybe the base does maybe 1 or 2 a year at the moment. It's just the bit of the coastline we're on isn't particularly touristy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I was asking, you mentioned elderly, so I didn't know if it was just going offshore to get, the majority. Well, I won't say the majority. Sorry for everybody that's, I don't, but I elderly end up getting hoisted off because they've got a heart attack or something happens on a cruise ship.
Yeah. So I'd certainly probably pick that. Yeah. Most of the cruise ship patients that you winch are older rather than younger, for sure.
Yep. Cool. Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to get into the second one, and then if you want to end it on a positive note, we can do that too.
Yeah. All right. No, we can We can do that too. There's I make it sound like it's all doom and gloom, but no, it's not. There's far more positives than negatives.
Well, you're still doing it. 14 years, you said it. 14. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the second accident, look, that one was on a training sortie or a training flight. We were training a new pilot to the company. We were doing some night training. At that stage, that base that I was working at the time, we weren't using night vision goggles. They hadn't been implemented yet. So we'd gone out during the day. We'd done a couple of practice approaches to what was going to be the area we're approaching to. We'd put out a light out in this area, and the plan was basically go home, eat dinner, come back in the dark, and do essentially the same thing again.
I'm doing the same thing tonight, so I get it.
Yeah.
Standard ops.
Yeah. So I was just along as the hoist operator. We were just to do that final bit of conning. As we conned into the pad, we actually hadn't even planned to be landing on. We were going to collect the strobe the following day. We were just sort of going to terminate it treetop height sort of thing, just practicing the night sun approaches that were part of the procedures at the time. We headed off over to the training area and set up on an approach. And as we were approaching, all of the numbers were looking good. The pilot so there was a pilot that was flying, and then which was under instruction, and we had the instructor on board as well. And the pilot that was flying, very experienced pilot, new to the company, not a new pilot. They were just talking through their approach. I'd open the rear door just well ahead of time to get organised to pick up my calls once they were ready. We passed through 1,000 feet and everything was looking okay. Then we sort of at about 400 feet roughly, and we're about probably 0.6 of a mile, or nautical mile, so a kilometre short of the pad. I'd sort of stuck my head out just to sort of start to picture what was going on, get ready to bring my calls in when they asked for it. And not sure, have you flown on many skidded aircraft?
Yes, not enough to have I've trained more on skidded aircraft than I've done jobs, but 412, 212, Huey, 429, BK 117, I understand it and I know what you're doing, but again, my stuff is more training side versus operational side.
Yeah, so all that was basically I'd put my head out, but where they had the searchlight and the night sun set up, I was getting massive glare off the reflection of the skid tube. So I can sort of see past. Yep, okay, that's not going to be an issue yet. And then sort of popped my head back inside out of the wind rush, and then stuck my head out a second time and sort of put my I could see where we were going to, but because of the glare, couldn't see straight down. Which we're a kilometre from where we needed to be. It wasn't such a big issue at that point. But I put my hand up to block the glare, and all of a sudden the ground became visual, and I sort of had to do a bit of a blink and shut my eyes and sort of reset because it just didn't quite. The picture didn't look right. I sort of, oh, geez, am I feeling dizzy or what's going on here? And I've looked, and as my brain's sort of processing the picture that I'm seeing, the pilot has called airspeed. And then I've sort of started to realize that it wasn't looking right, because rather than, you're looking out a car window or anything, it's moving from forward to back. The picture of everything outside the aircraft.
Oh.
What I was looking at the ground was moving forward and to the left.
Okay.
So the ground was moving forwards and to the left, away from the aircraft.
So you're backing up.
Yeah. So as I've tweaked with that, the pilot started calling, go around, go around, go around.
Yeah.
I've then started making the climb call because we're descending rapidly. We were too low to be able to nose over and get the airspeed again to get around. So basically, we just came down came down through the trees in a slow sort of arc, crashed down through the trees. Hit the ground. It was an interesting one. So I was on harness in the back on my wander lead, not strapped into a seatbelt. There was branches and stuff coming in through the door, but for the most part, I was fine. I didn't get hurt. But because we hit the ground with everything still running, the blades were smashing into the trees that we're amongst. Yeah. So the pilots, the two pilots, they were getting thrown sort of probably eight or so inches forward and aft violently because they were getting the same vibrations that the airframe was doing, hitting the trees, whereas I wasn't getting any of that. So I got forward and shut down the first engine. By that time, the rotor speed had started shutting down, so the pilot beat me to the second one, or the instructor pilot beat me to the second one. But so we completely rode off the aircraft, crushed the airframe, destroyed the main rotor, split it on its belly.
Holy cow!
Yeah. So then, we got out, made sure we were. There was no injuries. I think I was the only one to draw blood, and it was like the tiniest of little. I've had bigger cuts. I've had bigger cuts shaving. That was as bad as it got from a tiny little twig or something that had managed to get under my visor, and that was it.
You just tell everybody. So, yeah. I was checking my blood sugar at that moment. I just wanted
to. So then basically we called back to the base. We've gone in, we need recovery. And they tasked the second aircraft, which landed at the pad that we'd intended to land at, but then they needed to hike the kilometre or so through the bush and the scrub to get to us.
Wow.
We then made our way, they came to us, then we made our way back, got to them, got out, and then, went over to the hospital for the standard checks and everything to make sure everything was all okay. And then, then the recovery sort of the airframe process began.
Holy smokes.
So essentially we entered vortex ring. So the aircraft descended into its own rotor wash and lost the effectiveness of the main rotor.
So you had no lift, basically.
No. Dang. So despite them pulling power because of how quickly the airspeed had come off, we'd entered that turbulent air and weren't getting the lift off the disc that we would expect.
Wow. I've seen videos of that happening. There's a great one of a police department. I believe it's a 412 they're flying. And they roll up and they do a big flare, ropes go out, and they go to level off the aircraft. And instead of dropping into that hover, it basically falls out of the sky.
Yeah.
That is exactly what happened with you guys.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, sorry.
A lot higher, but yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Essentially the same thing, just at a higher altitude. And
wow.
Yeah.
So now I've got a couple questions.
Sure. Shoot
First
away.
One, you guys are running you said the Huey, right?
Oh, it's a 412, yeah.
412. All right, so you're running a 412. Yep. Internal or external hoist?
External hoist.
Okay, so and the reason I asked that is because with an internal hoist, you've got a little bit of protection there, almost something you could grab. With an external hoist, that whole cabin door is wide open. Now, are you attached to the hellhole, like that attachment point, or are you up to the ceiling?
Yeah. So we've got an attachment point that is on the arm that the hoist is mounted to.
Okay.
And our hoist is mounted in line with the forward transmission wall, so it's aft a bit. So I know there's other 412s that have it mounted essentially where the internal one would boom out to.
Yep.
Ours is in line with the forward transmission wall. So when you're winching, you're in that back rear quarter.
And then for those that don't fly on a 412 or understand the internal cabin configuration, I mentioned the word the hellhole because it's that forward transmission. The transmission comes all the way down and then they basically box that off. So you have anchor points and stuff that are in that forward side of the the transmission wall, and then the two side transmission walls that go fore and aft. And sometimes there's a troop seat there, but the pendant's on the back, like the back wall. And so that's like you being anchored to that side hellhole wall. Like your tether is actually probably what, maybe 2 feet, 3 feet, where you can stand out on the skid.
Roughly, yeah. And yeah, so basically, I'd sort of dropped to my butt and put 1 foot up against the quarter door.
Oh yeah, okay.
And was just able to basically brace myself in as best I could onto the floor to make sure I wasn't falling outward. At least, I wasn't. Yeah, I was bare bum on the deck of the aircraft. I certainly wasn't in a seat or anything like that, but I was at least positively braced inwards so that I wasn't falling outward.
Which for you is probably the best spot to be, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, and like I said, that everyone else that was strapped into seats felt every impact that aircraft had, whereas I just sort of bounced around a little bit in the back and was fine because I wasn't connected or secured to anything that was moving violently.
Yeah. You've just answered a couple questions for me right off the get-go, because I question that every time I get on a tether. Like, okay, if the aircraft impacts here, or if something happens here, where am I going to be flown to and flung to? And where are my exit points and stuff? And it's actually kind of you've just helped me out, my mindset.
I aim to please.
Yeah, thanks. So to again kind of recap and debrief it, how did the aircraft get into that situation? Do they know?
So the pilot that was flying had taken his eyes outside off his instruments and was looking outside to look at his sight picture and his references. There's talk in the ATSB report that he took his hand off the collective to adjust a light to help set up his picture, and that may have contributed to when he's washed off speed unexpectedly. So he's sort of decelerated. The rate of descent stayed the same, but he's sort of decelerated down to about 30 knots or so. And with the 500 foot or so minute rate of descent we had in that, what was a stabilized approach, that loss of airspeed has then, steepened up what we were doing, and we've descended into that turbulent air.
Wow. Dang. The trees that you guys kind of crashed into, were they like huge trees, small trees? And I'm asking because, like I understand when the blades hit them.
Yeah. So they were gum trees, sort of talking, maybe 1.5 feet, 2 foot in diameter.
Okay. So they're decent size.
Yeah. Yep. Big trees. They would have probably been 30 meters, 60 to 90 foot tall, somewhere at 20 to 30 meters tall, 60 to 90 foot. Like there was tall canopy.
Wow. Holy cow. Yeah. And when they talk about waiting for all violent motion to stop, that's the rotor blades that are blowing apart as they're hitting all the trees and stuff. And one thing I will say, you're extremely lucky having the cabin door open, because you have a huge door on the 412, the debris that could come in, or even the rolling, if you had rolled on that side of the aircraft on the way in.
Yes.
And as long as that.
Yeah, and I was just lucky with the way the branches were as we came crashing down. There was nothing that sort of pointed directly in, and poking in and impaling or anything like that. It was, as we've come down, it's just sort of bent whatever we needed, whatever was there out of the way, or, hasn't let anything big into the cabin, which was pretty lucky.
Wow. Dude. I'm really just trying to take all this in for this moment.
I can tell by the look on your face.
Any crash you can walk away from is a good one. Yeah. So my buddy Olaf Lavelle, he was in a plane crash like that. He talks about it on one of his episode, and he looked over the pilot. Pilot was like, "My bad." Like, you're bad. What? Oh.
Yeah, look, and yeah, it was an interesting one. I when we got to the hospital, I said to the instructor, I'd been flying with him for quite a while, and I flew with him for a while after the accident as well. I'm just trying to remember how long that would have been. But, when we got to the hospital, as we were walking up the ramp, I said, mate, if you want to fly that aircraft back, I'm flying back with you. He, awesome. He sort of took it to heart a fair bit, but yeah, in my head, and this is just my own point of view, there's certain things that you shouldn't have to worry about on a guy that's got 10,000 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean? That, who has control, who's in command is in command, but there's certain things that as an instructor, I think it's, reasonable to get caught out with for stuff that's, some of the fundamentals. So.
Right. How do I want to say this? Accidents happen.
Yeah.
That's why they're called accidents. You and I can say we've been driving cars and riding dirt bikes for a long, long time. It doesn't mean that something doesn't happen behind the wheel or something. It's
exactly. Yeah.
We're not doing it on purpose. I get that. So good I would have gotten in the aircraft with him too. Like, good on you.
Yeah. So it was good. As good as can be. But I was glad that he didn't stop flying. The instructor, he took a little bit of time off and came back, and it would have been a shame had that been sort of the career ender, because it shouldn't have been. So
hey, good for him.
That's exactly. And we flew together for quite a bit after that. It was good.
Kick the tires, light the fires. Let's roll.
But it's one of those things. It's funny, people sort of go, which was the better, which was a bit better or worse, or whichever way you want to cut it, half glass, half full glass. Or but certainly the if I'm having a third accident, please don't. I don't plan to. I really don't. I really don't. But the broken bones is pretty. I'd probably pick a few more broken bones again, because I dealt with a bit of it wasn't a bit. I dealt with PTSD post that one. And I'd much rather just, broken bone, put it in a cast, do these rehab things, and there's this nice clear linear progression that you can follow to get to the end, versus the PTSD sort of crept up on me with that one. I was probably all right it's probably close to 12 months before I sort of really went and did anything about it. It's sort of, there were slow changes over time that I wasn't necessarily picking up on. I was back flying within a week, I think, of the second accident. Went back, this is all normal. And then slow changes over time, I started to get more and more sensitive to anything that was uncommanded. So
define unsensitive, or sensitive.
My heart would skip a beat, or I'd start to get a little bit, hang on, just that spidey sense would pick up. Which normally it picks up at the right times, whereas it was like, here's a little bump, or a little bit of just a little bit of turbulence as you go over a bit of terrain or something, and all of a sudden I'd be far more agitated. Agited's not the right word, that's too strong, but my spidey sense would go off a bit too much, and like, okay, hang on, looking at the instruments, no, we're wings level, airspeed's good, looking at all of that, but just on edge a bit more. And only with
that's a good way to put it, on edge.
Yeah, only with uncommanded stuff, because and I didn't realize at the time, but anything that wasn't intentional was like, just the little bumps and lumps that weren't deliberate. The pilot could roll it over at a 45 wing, 45-degree turn, and I'd be fine, because there's that, you fly, you know what it's like. There's that deliberate feel to it versus something that's unexpected. So that sort of started to gradually build up. I was probably holding it together at work pretty well, but then not once I walked out the door of work. I ended up at the dentist and going to the doctor because of headaches, and they're like, "It's because you're clenching your teeth. Why are you clenching?" I was like, "Oh, I think I'm pretty angry." And I was walking, and I was.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry.
And it is because it makes perfect sense now looking at it in hindsight. But I was walking around. If I wasn't carrying something, I wouldn't realize that I was clenching either my fist or my jaw. I was always on edge, and because it crept on slowly, I didn't notice as this, hey, here's this new thing straight after an accident. Here's a direct cause. It just sort of crept on. I didn't realize that I was, until it became a bigger thing, that I was seeking conflict. I was looking for arguments with stuff.
Wow.
Some mates had to peel me off a couple of people at the indoor soccer game, and I'm like, that probably wasn't that probably wasn't that big a deal. Wonder what's going on here. There was tussling sort of stuff. I wasn't going around throwing punches or anything, but far more agitated than the laid back me had sort of ever been in the past. And I just got to a point where I was like, look, I'm gonna have to stick my hand up and go and speak to someone. I don't know what it is to do with, but something's going on. I went and found a gun psychologist, and he's like, yeah, look, he basically explained that I'd been conditioned, although I didn't think I'd had any psychological impacts from the first one. Basically, after the 2 accidents, I'd been deconditioned or conditioned to my body to expect, when that sort of sensation starts, something near death is coming, essentially.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking a fair bit of time off working with psychologists and psychiatrists. I think it ended up being about 12 months I was away from flying.
Wow.
Just sort of, working through it. But like I said, broken bones, so simple. Just, put a plate in it, put a pin in it, do the rehab. When you can lift this much with this one, lift this much more. And, it just goes. Whereas, the head's a different beast. And, anyone that's out there, I'd certainly, don't be afraid. If you break your arm, you're going to go and see an orthopedic surgeon. If there's something going on in your head, go and see someone that's good at fixing head stuff. And don't be afraid to sort of shop around a bit. The first one I went to was hopeless. And then I got onto a second one, and he was fantastic. For me, at least. For me.
You know what? No. You are absolutely accurate, because most people, and even psychologists, I'm not taking anything away from anybody other than psychologist or anything like that, counselor, you don't understand our mindset. So you can't relate or even empathize with anything we are talking about. Zero.
Yeah, and like the first guy was, and you can probably pick up from my whole "I'd rather break a bone." I needed a process, and the first guy was, what is PTSD, and how we're not worrying about labels. We're just working it out once you're back to being you. I'm like, well, I'm not all that much of a philosophical person, I don't think. I'm not even sure I could explain what me was before anyway. So how are we going to know when we get there? It was quite these big wishy-washy terms. And then I got on to Brian, and he, it was clear cut. This is what's going on. This is how this process works. You're triggering your amygdala. It's triggering your fight or flight when it shouldn't. We need to work on deconditioning you, and then it'll eventually be calibrated to the right thing. Okay, cool. There's a process. I can work with that. And it, and we just clicked. It was great. We sort of worked through it. There were some yeah, so basically the whole plan was just we dealt with what was going on, and then eventually just slowly tried to decondition me to be used to that sort of unexpected type stuff. I tried with the workers' insurance this time to our company sends pilots to the simulator all the time. Unfortunately, there's not a 412 sim in Australia, so we'd
States?
At the moment, or most recently, they have. At the time, they were going to either Sweden or Dubai.
Okay.
Yeah, but so we put in this request, and we said, look, the maneuvers and things that we want to do to decondition me is not particularly safe to do in the aircraft. We want to do it as part of our simulator program. And when the pilots are over there, we'll put Sam at the end and then run through a particular protocol and try and work through like that. But that just did not fit the work insurers' models at all.
Sending you to America or Dubai.
We can't send someone. We can't send someone overseas for this thing. It just broke all of their models, and they knocked it back. We tried a couple of times, and I said to the I was talking with the psychologist and the psychiatrist. I'm like, look, we're going to have to come up with something different. And the psychologist, he sort of said, oh, look, leave it with me. Oh, yep, sure, okay. And we didn't talk about that for a bit and just kept doing our normal sessions and stuff. And then he said, oh, look, next week, I want you to wear shorts and a t-shirt, shoes, and meet me here. And he gave me this obscure address, like nowhere near his office, nowhere near my house, just opposite side of town. So, oh, okay, let's try that. Oh, let's see what he's got going. He said, I'm not telling you what it is, just meet me there. And I get to this sort of semi-industrial area, and there's a car park out the front. And he'd gone and tracked down a bull riding machine.
Oh, I love this guy right now.
Yeah, I know. And he's gone, look, I don't know what else we can get that will move completely unpredictably and other than this. So let's try this. I was like, oh, sure. All right. So it was I think it was fortnightly these sessions were, that I would go for hour and a half on the bull riding machine for, it was 4 or 5 sessions, I think. And sort of we just started off with it moving slowly and just sort of bucking around, and then it was moving a bit faster. Then it was moving a bit faster with my eyes closed, so it was trickier to expect. And we just gradually built it up. And then he snuck down to work, and then he went and got my helmet. And then there was another time where I'm sitting, and there's trucks and cars and everything driving past, and there's me in a car park on a bull riding machine wearing my flight helmet with my eyes closed, getting thrown left, right, and center. Because once you've got a helmet on and your eyes are closed, it gets a bit trickier to stay on the bull. I'm getting blisters on my hands because I'm, out in the sun trying to hang onto this rope and not get thrown. And and then it graduated to the final one where there was someone.
You got on a real bull. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I graduated to the real thing.
So that because everyone's put everything on YouTube. Some person had put like 12 hours straight of 412 engine noise just on a video. So then I had earphones in with the phone in my pocket, just playing 412 noise with my headphone on, with my helmet on, with the headphones in underneath, blindfolded, bucking around, and because that was as close as we could get to anything that just moved chaotically. And by the end of it, the bull riding guy goes, mate, if you want, I can tell you where I'm going to be on Friday nights, because you win all the money, because no one trains as much as you just have. I felt like that was probably a bit harsh to just go and go and steal everyone's coin. But
no, not at all. It's called training. You should have done it.
Yeah, I should have. But so then once we went through that, we then we moved into some aircraft stuff as well. And then gradually sort of moved on and progressed through that. And I was on some medication for a while and gradually wound off that and was good to go. But broken bones, much easier. much easier.
Wow, Sam, that is incredible. What, to try to put a little bit of a comparison on what you went through in like medical terms wise, it's almost like having a problem with the bends and going to do a decompression chamber to reset it, bring you back down, and then gradually bring you back up. You just did that with your mind.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Holy, what a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know where he got it. He's just like, oh, there was just this sign, and I thought, I'll give this guy a call. But like, there was a sign at his local pub. Like, it wasn't because it was coming that night. Like, not from anything else. And I've got no idea how he invoiced that, but but it worked out great.
So how do you feel since then? Like since your graduation?
Since look, I think I'm as normal as close to normal as I was. I'm certain, no more of any of those feelings in the aircraft.
Cool.
None of that. It's I'm back to being me, really, is probably the best way to put it. It's just, and it's not something I'm happy that if I'm not got an issue talking about it, but I certainly at the time kept it very, very quiet because now I've got no issues talking about it. If anyone's got questions about it, I'm an open book. But at the time, because I was doing a couple of sessions a week with the psychologist, and then maybe an extra one with the psychiatrist, depending on what was going on. And I just didn't want to be updating everyone of what was going on. I was doing it. I was doing enough talking about it to fix it that I didn't want each week to be going, oh, yep, this is how I'm at. And then, oh, yep, now the next day I see a different person that I haven't seen this week to explain it. The talking all sorted it out, but I just didn't want to be talking about the whole process and updating everyone that I didn't need to. So I sort of kept it really quiet. Work obviously knew, and the work guys knew that I was off, but outside of that, there weren't very many people that noticed at all. And when you're a shift worker, it's pretty easy to be, oh, you at work today? No. They go, oh, okay. And then I'm not going to try and understand your crazy 8-day roster. You're not at work today. Okay.
Wow.
It's and I think it's something that our industry is exposed to and at risk from. I think you become a paramedic, become a doctor, become an ED nurse or something, like you're expecting to see the trauma and that side of stuff, but you become a rescue swimmer, or you get into this game, you're sort of expecting to rescue people, not have the downside and the trauma and all of that side of things. So, if you're noticing any changes in yourself, you just need to go and speak up. And I mean, it took me a long time to, I'm certainly not going to say I was awesome at it, but I'm certainly very, very glad that I did.
So it's interesting what you had said kind of in the beginning of it crept up on you for a 12-month period. There's, again, Olaf Lavelle, one of the guys I interviewed already, he talks about his ghosts, and having seen people. I'm in the same boat where I vividly remember people, vividly, good, bad, and different. They're there.
Yeah.
It's, and this is years later, for you to see that and then be able to take steps. That's awesome. So for all of us out there that are doing this job, when you start to see those changes, man, I'm going to direct them right to you, Sam. Be like, hey, call Sam. Sam will help you out.
Mate, honestly, and I've said the same thing to the other members within the Rescue Swimmers Association, and that if you want to talk to someone, give me a call. I don't care if knowing how bad it got before I spoke up. if a chat with someone is going to help in any way, shape, or form, then I'd be mad if I didn't at least try and help. That's kind of why we all do what we do, is to help others. So I'm not gonna, if there's something, talking to someone, if I'm going to be that, if I can be that ear, then I'm happy to be that ear to help get the ball rolling. So it's just one of those things. You just gotta, sometimes you got to pay that little bit of attention to how far you've drifted. It's easy to get caught up in the day to day and not notice the small changes day to day. But then you zoom out 6 months, 12 months, you go, oh, hang on, this is I've gone a fair bit off the reservation here, or whatever the case may be.
Yep. And then for you specifically, you needed to grab the bull by the horns.
yes, I did.
Come on, I needed to throw that.
Yeah, that was good. That was very good.
Mic drop. I'm out. But that was actual, so that's kind of. Thank you for letting me throw that joke in there. That was
no.
Yeah, man. Again, thank you for sharing, like, the story and everything that, recovery and everything you went through. That's incredible. I am so happy that, one, you've shared this, and two, you're back flying and everything's worked out for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm pretty lucky. It certainly could have taken other turns at other points along the way, and I'm lucky the way it's turned out. But I wouldn't not have had those accidents by choice. Right. I've learned from them. I've grown from them. It's sort of just part of the ride now, really.
Yes, it is. I know you said you would end on a good note, so let's bring it back up. We'll bring it back up.
All right. I think the top job, really, as far as memorable and positive ones, is early on, probably within the first 12 months of starting. I helped deliver a baby in the aircraft.
What?
Dude. So it was on an aeromedical task. So we'd been sent out to retrieve the mother. She'd turned up to a clinic. There'd been some complications. They weren't sure if the baby was still alive. So they weren't sure. Maybe these complications are because it's going to be stillborn. There wasn't really much other than a community nurse and a stethoscope on the island that this lady had gone to get some help from. So we flew out there, and the paramedic sort of having a listen, and she's just looked at me and she's like, I've got a heartbeat. We're going now. So we quickly got mum into the aircraft, and we started heading back, and it had been an all-nighter. Actually, we watched the sun come up on the way back, and
well, that's always kind of cool. Like, hey,
yeah, it is. It's always the little, like, the nice bit at the end of a all-nighter that beats you up. But so we're heading back, and the mother's just she wasn't on intercom, so she was just in the stretch, laying on the stretcher, had earmuffs on for ear protection, but she wasn't on comms. And she's just sort of waved and grabbed the attention of myself and the paramedic, and just sort of pointed down between her legs, like, with this look of panic on her face. And we sort of looked at each other and went, I think it's happening. We're getting out of seatbelts, guys. To the pilot.
No. Sorry, can't you squeeze it? Can't you hold it?
Yeah. And so sort of straight away, she's sort of super quick. We the paramedic said, "Oh, can you grab this from around the corner?" So I've turned around to grab a couple of things, and I turn around and there's a head. I'm like, oh, wow, this really is happening. And then the paramedic asked for something else. I can't remember what it was. And then I come back to do that, and there's a whole baby. I'm like, whoa. And the baby wasn't super well. So we started, the paramedic was working really hard, and I was just handing over anything that she needed and making sure that the mum was all right. And did the airborne amendment to persons on board to air traffic. We're no longer 5 POB, we're now 6.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then the ATC sort of chuckled to themselves because, you know, obviously a rescue helicopter picks people up all the time, but at 4,000 feet, we haven't just done a winch. Yeah, so we got her back to the hospital. The child was named after the paramedic, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. But the story gets more awesome when we fast forward, must have been 3 or 4 years, and one of the crewmen comes back to the accommodation, or it's Ben that you've interviewed in the past, and he walks in at the end of his shift and he goes, "Mate, you're not going to believe the job I was just on." I'm like, "What's happened?" He goes, we just did a baby delivery as well." I'm like, "What?" You know, and
what?
If you put a pin on the map, it was within 20 miles of where the baby was that we delivered.
Like, no way.
Transit. Like, it was the same route, point A to point B. It was just, almost in the same spot. But the crazy thing was, it was the same mother.
No way. What?
Yeah. So this woman, I think it ended up being child number 1 and child number 3, but 2 of her children were born in our helicopter at 4,000 feet.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and literally only the other week I saw a thing on the news that said, I think it was somewhere in the US, that a mother had gone into labor. It might have been like a Hawaii back to the mainland sort of one, that there wasn't somewhere to divert to. And they said, it's a 1 in 26 million passengers that someone has a baby. It's super rare. And I was sort of like, yeah, I can see you and raise you 1 in 26 million. I'm not very good at odds, but I know that it's not just 1 in 52 million that you've had 2 babies on an aircraft. So,
she is probably the only woman that's ever done it twice in the aircraft.
Quite possibly.
Wow.
So there was, I'm not sure if I've still got a picture of it, but we put 2 stork delivering a baby decals on the side of the aircraft. You know, like fighter pilots have got their kills there, and we had our babies stacking up down the side of the aircraft. There's obviously lots of memorable ones, but that one is just 1 in a, I don't know what number, 1 in a billion, or something that being a part of that story.
That is incredible. And I'm going to pick on Ben too for not telling me the first time. What the hell, Ben?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So that one was that was just sort of disbelief when that second time happened. We're just like, how is that? How has that happened? So
I wonder if you could say there was something in the air.
Well, yeah, we wonder whether the not flying in a pressurized cabin, that that something to do with it, which is obviously a bit different to an airliner. But crazy odds, crazy long odds.
That's hilarious.
Yep. So and it's quite cool, because we do the EMS and SAR as a combined thing, that our aircraft do aeromedical tasks as well. We get exposed to some pretty impressive tales of survival, from trauma type stuff. Our aircraft goes to roadside accidents quite a lot. And,
nice. Okay. And
you'll see a car that barely looks like a car, and then, it's quite rewarding to be able to take that person back, knowing that, well, for starters, I don't know how you survived it, but we've been able to get you back to the hospital and get you back to normal, which is very rewarding and satisfying, because obviously, as you know, the SAR work can be hot and cold, and sometimes it's a long time between drinks between some of that sort of work. So that's something that's quite enjoyable from our side of things, that we get doing roadsides or primary, where we're the first on scene type accidents, is pretty impressive to watch. We've often got doctors and stuff on board to deal with that higher level of care, because it's obviously a bit more medically intensive than just pulling someone out of the water because their boat sunk.
Right.
but yeah, it's pretty impressive. And there's been there was one patient who ended up with hadn't realized that a scratch on his chest had actually been a nail gun going off. So he thought he was fixing it. He was fixing it and thought that it had just gone bang, but didn't realize that it was loaded. And he turned up into hospital 4 days later, wondering why his chest was sore.
Oh my gosh.
And you sort of see some things like that. Yeah, you see things like that, and you're like, wow, the human body can, in some circumstances, can just take an unbelievable amount of punishment and come back. Yeah. So I think that it's hard to pick any one medical job which is the bell ringer, but the accumulation of just the stuff that you see, and I've probably been a bit harsher on my kids as far as, you've stubbed your toe. Do you know what I've seen another little girl have done to her, and she was smiling? They're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Dad, but my toe hurts. Like, yeah, but your stomach's not hanging out. You'll be fine.
You know what? I gotta apologize to my kids too. I do the same thing. Sorry.
Yeah, it's in some aspects, it's quite cool to have. You get to see this crazy level of context as far as what trauma and what suffering really looks like, but then sometimes it thickens your skin a bit to what is happening at home, and you're like, that's not bad. You can just keep going, and but for someone else, that's a really, really big deal because it's the worst thing they've ever had happen to them. You're like, on the spectrum, you're fine, mate. You're right at the tickling end of it.
Yeah, you don't have a bone sticking out. You're fine.
Yeah. So I think that side of things, but in Australia, I think is quite unique for the rescue swimmers to be exposed to. I don't think that, as far as I'm aware, there's not too many spots where the rescue swimmer is going to that sort of overland type accidents when they're not involved in SAR cases. So I really like that element of it. Obviously, there's the sad outcomes as well, but the positives far outweigh. Outweigh all of that for sure.
Totally agree with that. I actually enjoy a bit of the medical side of it and going on medevacs and stuff. And like you said, the outcome, some of them are good, some of them are bad, but for the most part, they work out well, and everyone's happy to see you. They're like, oh, so glad you showed up. You're welcome.
Yeah. yes. That's exactly right. It's and seeing, the family, the worried look on the family as you sort of head off, and like, look, they're going to be fine. We'll get them to hospital. It's always, I think from that side of things, often with the medical tasks, you have more interaction with the person or the family members of the person you're helping than you do with SAR stuff or search and rescue type tasks a bit more. So I think, that connection with family members, I think is quite good to see that relief on their face when that help arrives, and understanding that they're getting the best level of care available to them. So,
totally agree.
Yeah,
dude, that's hilarious. I still can't get over this whole baby thing. I'm sorry. I gotta go back to that. If you delivered a baby in the aircraft, and then a couple of years later, same lady is delivering another baby in the aircraft with Ben. Awesome.
Yeah. If anyone's any good at maths and knows how to work out what the odds are, if someone was already 1 in 26 million and then they did it a second time, I'd be fascinated to know. But my brain doesn't work with maths numbers that big. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty impressive. So.
Well, I'll take any other ones that stand out like that, because that's just hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, again, just the funny stuff, the stuff you see, we're pretty lucky in Australia. I don't think there's any helicopter operators that don't end up in pretty spectacular parts of the country, depending on where they are, whether it's big expanses of deserts or coral reefs or, wild terrain and that sort of thing. So, there's stuff you get to see that, as much as you see the negatives and all of that, you see some pretty special stuff. And, the reactions when you're able to reunite people back with people, or, you know, the look on someone's face when you pluck them out, you know, and you're always learning, you're always picking stuff up. You know, there's always, you know, no matter how long you've been doing it, you've never been doing it long enough to not get caught with, you know, something that makes you feel like a bit of a goose, or, oh, gee, I learnt that, and it's kind of probably should have known that, or, you know, you know, I remember.
Let's not do that again.
No, that's it. You know, I got swallowed by a life raft once, and you know, I'm not going to get eaten by a life raft again.
Wait a minute, what? Come on, man.
We'd winched a couple of guys off of a boat, and or their vessel had sunk, and we pulled them out of the raft. And the plan had been that I think it was a police launch or a customs vessel was going to come and collect this raft and get it, because it was going to be a danger to traffic. And we offloaded the crewman, and then we got a phone call back and said, look, the vessel's been retasked. We're going to have to go and get it scuttled, because we'd left the beacon on so they could home to it. And they said that it's a distraction with that other beacon on, and they're not going to get to the vessel to the raft for a couple of days. We're going to have to send you back and scuttle it. Like, oh, okay, no worries. So we go back to it, and the beacon was sitting in the raft. It hadn't been thrown out and into the water. So the stopper said, oh yeah, mate, I'll just put you in so you can grab the beacon. Like, yep, no worries. Then I don't have to climb through all the rope and all the stuff that was hanging off the outside of it. So he popped me in, and I've grabbed the beacon and connected it onto my harness. And, oh yep, got to scuttle it. And I popped the first tube, the first ring, and it sunk a little bit. Now I've popped the second one, and of course it's got, you know, a massive CO2 cylinder on the bottom of it, in the middle of it, doesn't it? So it's just started, you know, not pulling me under, but certainly weighing me down. And it's just sort of wrapped around me like glad wrap. And I'm like, so I sort of, you know, winch me up a little bit, get this bit of rope off, winch me up a little bit. No, put me back down. I missed this bit of rope. And yeah, you know, I was like in a Venus flytrap of the ocean. But yeah, you know, but I'm never going to scuttle a life raft from the inside of it ever again. So I learned something. So
duly noted.
Everyone on board, everyone. Yeah.
Not something I think I would have thought of. Hey, be inside the raft, popping it.
Yeah. It's just where I was. You know, that's where the beacon was. So that's where I was sitting. And I've got a knife. It needs to be popped. I'll do it from here. And there's rope and tangles on the outside, and, you know, hazards on the outside. So I won't go out there where the hazards are. I'll stay here. But down it went.
No, don't take me under. Don't take me under.
Yeah.
You're popping your own inflation.
Yeah. Fortunately, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't super heavy. It just sort of closed around me, and you know, it kept, But
I can't kick my feet anymore.
It's just one of those things.
Damn it.
You fly back to base and you're sort of just kicking yourself. You're like, I can't believe that happened to me. I'm glad there's no cameras on this aircraft. I'm glad there wasn't a fixed wing overhead with the camera on me. That's good. It's
oh man.
Yeah,
So
but, you know,
hilarious.
it's that sort of stuff as well. That you know, it's all funny. It's all if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. So
that's right. I say, if you're not having fun, you're not hanging out with me. I'm just saying.
True as well.
And we've just started. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
We're going to have a great relationship. This is going to be amazing. Wait until you roast that. Oh, stop.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. Come on, borders. Open them up.
You get it. Come on, Australia. Let's go.
Yeah.
We got a rescue server meeting to get to. Come on.
We do.
Oh, that's great. Well, Sam, I'll tell you what, man, I'm going to open the floor to you. You've given us such amazing advice and stories. If there's anything else you want to share, and it can be anything, please do. I'm going to open the floor to you, whatever you want to pass on to younger generations, upcoming rescue swimmers, hoist operators. Tag your it.
Oh, geez, that's a fair bit of pressure.
I know, right?
I think just, yeah. Look, I think just that whole find a way to enjoy it, keep learning, you know, that's as much as any of us can do. You know, everyone's different. There's no hard and fast rule. There's no one best way. Every aircraft type's different. Every contract set up's differently. Everyone's using slightly different equipment. You know, there's no point trying to force any one thing on anyone. You just got to keep learning, keep being open-minded, and find a way to enjoy it. And even if you can't turn up to work every day and enjoy it, then maybe you need a break or whatever the case may be. But and that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Sometimes guys work hard for too long and they just need a break. They need a breather. So but no, I don't think I'm the one for wisdom and the like that can be globally applied or anything like that. I probably need a bit more wisdom myself than anything else.
Well, actually, I like what you just said there about, the gear. Not everybody's doing the same thing. Everything's a little bit different. Learn. Try it. There's no I said before, there's no cookie cutter rescue. Everything's a little different, So every aircraft's a little different. Everything performs a little different. Utilize it the best of your ability.
And as much as there's similarities everywhere, everything's evolved differently in different places for different reasons. And,
right.
You can't go and be like, oh, they're doing it this way and because they're a pack of clowns. It's not the case. No one's decided, hey, let's see the most risky way we can perform this. No one's doing that. It's just that, they've either been isolated in a bubble and haven't spoken with other people and work and have been lucky enough not to learn from mistakes yet, or how it's just evolved that way for some reason. But there's a reason behind all of it, and we just all need to chat. The ideal thing is probably somewhere in the middle, but that's going to be tricky because no one's using exactly the same helicopter everywhere. Right. Everything's configured slightly differently for different stretches, for different gear, for different hoists, different hooks. It's you just got to listen to what people are doing and ask questions and take a broad brush approach and go, oh, look, these are the principles they're using. So let's
love it. These are the principles. Oh, absolutely. It's guidelines. It's here, it's a guide. It's recommendations. I love it. Sam, good on you. That's awesome. Man, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing these stories. This has been awesome for me, and to recap some of the stuff that now I have even further backstory, especially with the first incident, because I talk about that incident with a lot of people as far as pilot reference and training and how important it is. And to hear it from the guy, again, I got a guy, I know the guy.
The guy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No worries at all. It's been, it's been great to come on. You've had a pretty impressive selection of guests so far. To get a Guernsey is pretty humbling. It's it's been good.
Thanks. I'm happy they just say yes.
It's always the first step,
right? Will you? Come on. Awesome. Well, man, keep in touch. I certainly will be in touch with you, and we'll keep this ball rolling, and I'll hopefully see you at the Eurosa meeting. So
yes, fingers crossed for Portugal.
Right? Come on, baby.
Yes.
And until next time, you fly safe, my friend. All right?
Will do, man. You too.
Thanks, brother. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Go. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real ResQ podcast. Please take a minute to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you on as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else we talk about here, send an email to jason@therealresq.com. That's Jason at TheRealResQ.com. You can also check us out on our web pages, therealresq.com, our Facebook page, and our Instagram page @TheRealResQ. Again, a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe and swim hard.